the most consumed meat in the world. And, fueled by the global demand for inexpensive meat, the industry continues to grow. In the United States, the waste produced by industrial pig farms is a major problem.
It's such a shame. Hello, everyone. How are you? I am glad to say that I am doing fine and well, and I hope everyone is doing fine at the moment.
There's just
let us continue.
Any empty frontiers anymore on the planet. If the Chinese try to eat like Americans, what will happen to the Amazon rainforest?
To feed the pigs as cheaply as possible, soy is being grown on a massive scale, especially in Brazil.
We make the food that goes on the global population's table.
Soy cultivation is helping to drive the deforestation of the Amazon. Grown as a monoculture, soy is impacting the whole world.
I love how watching the Earth die as a result of your activities is
1.4 billion. Rising
so fun. You have to play carnival music in the background. Well, I take it more serious than you do. You'll find that out. You will find that out.
That's more than half of the world's production.
This is the beginning of the slaughterhouse chain. We slaughter about 600 pigs per hour. The equipment is imported from a Dutch company. This factory was built in the 1950s, and in 1998 we shifted to large-scale production.
The impact of China's pork boom is being felt around the world. Chinese companies are snapping up huge industrial pig farms, like one in the U.S. state of North Carolina.
The pigs in North Carolina were owned by traditional family farmers, raising about 2 million pigs. There were about 22,000 of them. They all got replaced by this factory system. And initially, Smithfield Foods and Murphy were the owners of that. They were American corporations. But now they've been bought out by a group called the WH Group, the old Shunwei Corporation out of China. It's a multinational corporation headquartered in China. You know, very wealthy. You know, I understand their profits for the first quarter of this year, just their net profit, first quarter of this year was $200 million. And you look at all those cesspools and you say to yourself, hey, they got the money to fix this. What's holding everything up? Well, what's holding everything up is the fact that they don't want to spend that money to fix the problem. They'd rather externalize the cost of their waste treatment on the people of North Carolina. Yeah, what we're going to do, this will film our whole trip as we...
and these are the partnerships that you are making, Africa, at this time.
And then if we spot some illegal discharge...
Partnerships where you or they are not considering the fact that you will be damaging the environment to the ultimate degree.
That's a little less than they're doing out in Iowa. But the problem we have, which is a humongous problem, is we've got all these pigs tightly packed together.
We have enough individuals on this planet who are smart enough to realize that this system, this industrialized system that we're sustaining ourselves with is destroying everything. And I don't understand why it is you are not strong enough to overpower the darkest side. Do you not really care enough? Well, it's time to care, folks.
The citizens of North Carolina's waterways. concentrated animal farms are in poor rural communities.
I don't have to tell you who the dark side is of your bloodline. You know who they are.
To restrict these
And I know who they are. And because I know who they are, if you are not powerful enough to
help the community, but even
influence the individuals that you've led
what a community member would want,
that for a very long time
working on
into this situation
a hog farm is not
to stop what they're doing and turn around,
you very rarely see
then I
the
will.
owners of these facilities living on site.
Elsie Herring lives near one.
I and the rest of the individuals on this planet who are conscious, aware,
Feels right there. So we don't open up the windows on this side. This is the bathroom window. The room next door
And
is
living.
my brother's bedroom, and the window this way is the kitchen window. So we don't open these windows at all on this side facing the spray field. The payphones are back here. To the south of my mother's house, right back here, straight back. But you can't see them from here. But you can see them from the mail route road.
immortal,
It's
behind the flesh of the melanated
That
people.
means it's raw. So that means we are inhaling this stuff when everything.
You and I are
The hog waste, the urine, the antibiotics,
cyclically
the ammonia, everything that's in
consigned to deal with
in the lagoon.
this situation.
Into our atmosphere. So we can't open our windows. We don't open the doors. We pretty much a prisoner in our own home. And when you do try to go out when he's spraying, you have to hold your breath because it'll take your breath away. You'll make your eyes start watering. You make you start coughing, gagging. You feel like you want to throw up. It makes you angry. You get depressed because no one is listening, and it just doesn't seem to me how someone could believe that they have a right to blow animal waste on another human being.
And this, the result
the largest pork producer in the
of our
US,
magnetic
is now owned by a
misalignment.
Chinese company.
During the 90s, we saw 90% of all our hog farms disappear in the United States. The cash market dwindled from 100% of the market to less than 5% of the market. The majority of animals now are raised under contracts. And so you saw this traditional, profitable industry for raising hogs get wiped out and replaced with this new way of raising animals that was industrialized and centrally controlled. It was really a corporate takeover, and it happened in a very short period of time. Most hog production today in the United States is produced in this industrial model. It's called vertical integration. The way it works is that a company will own the nursery where the hogs are born. It'll own the feed mill that produces the feed for the hogs. It owns the trucking lines that transport the hogs. It even owns the slaughterhouse where the pigs are killed and turned into a variety of product. This was a business that used to be a pillar of rural America. And then it got taken over by Smithfield. This is a company that had spent decades devouring independent firms in the United States and acquiring a kind of market share that never should have been allowed to fall under the umbrella of one firm. It is not a good idea to allow one firm to control 30% of the entire market in the pork industry or food industry. Once that happened, though, it became a very attractive target for any kind of overseas company that could afford to buy it. Just a huge sector of productive capacity in rural America. I mean, we're talking about thousands of large-scale farms. There's a lot of money being made raising pigs in the United States.
The Chicago Mercantile Exchange is one of the biggest in the world. Agricultural commodities are also traded here.
Well, down here, this is now the financial room here we're standing in. So over here we have bond option trading. We have T-bonds here. Our agricultural sector has been diminished over here, which we still do the options on soybeans, wheat, and corn. And we also do livestock. China for years and years has been trying to eat like a Westerner, which we consume about 3,400 calories per day. China's now approaching 2,900 calories, so they've really caught up with where we are in caloric intake. China has the largest hog herd in the world, accounting for about 47% of all pork productions. But again, when we look at meat consumption or caloric consumption going forward, it's got to happen in countries like Bangladesh, Nigeria, Pakistan, India. These are going to be the big drivers of calories over the next 10 to 20 years. Heretofore, they don't have the GDP rates to expand their meat consumption, much like China didn't become a big meat consumer until the 2001-2002 period when its GDP levels started to rally dramatically.
China's hunger for pork is driving Chinese companies to scour the world in search of new production facilities and expertise.
I think having a secure pork market is very important in China, and that's part of the reason why Xionghui, or now it's known as WH Group, why they looked to acquire Smithfield, America's largest pork producer. One, I think they wanted access to supply, but two, from what I've heard from Smithfield executives, is that they wanted to learn how the American pork operations worked, how we were able to produce so much pork on so very little land. And that means that this American industrialized style of producing pork is being exported to China.
These conscious controls, they
China has caught up with the West.
Trade power back and forth to each other. And the only reason why the power that is traded is to bring this planet to an end, believe it or not. You people aren't aware of this, but I'm going to fully explain it to you shortly. I don't want to keep you people stuck in suspended animation. I don't want you to think this is not real. This is very real. When you hear what I have to tell you, you are certainly going to want to change your mind about the way you perceive reality. I can assure you of that. So please be patient, bear with me,
in such a small
and stay braced.
Animals' health is compromised.
For we are certainly in a venerable haunted house.
Both for illness prevention and to increase weight gain in animals. In general, if you have a few pigs on a farm, their waste is an asset. It's something you can spread on your fields. It's a fantastic fertilizer. You have a complete nutrient cycle. But when you have 10,000 or 20,000 hogs in a small facility, their waste is a huge liability.
In 1960, there was less than 10 billion animals killed per year for food.
This is unbelievable.
Today there's over 70 billion. And if the trajectory of meatification continues, there will be 120 billion animals killed for food by 2050. Industrial livestock operations effectively command about a third of the world's...
This model won't even exist by 2050, folks. This model won't even exist.
Being maize and a huge source of oilseeds, principally soybeans on a world scale. And so there are these huge flows of grain and oilseed monocultures through what I call islands of concentrated animals.
Soy cultivation is having...
Oh, how would you like to live that way? On a planet,
China's hunger for meat
cannot enjoy the sun, cannot enjoy anything, because the imbalanced
As a country consumes twice as much
human beings at the top of the food chain are
person is only consuming
only concerned about themselves.
Americans. So where the
That'd be a nice life, huh?
Fully emulate the American diet. It's hard to say where that meat would come from.
Because it's all about you, human beings on the planet. It's not about the trees that give you oxygen. It's not about the forest.
Imports of soybeans
Gives you oxygen. It's not about the forest that gives you food. And I'm not talking about meat. I'm talking about a plethora of unbelievably prepared and unbelievable tasting foods. You people totally oblivious to your natural
wanted to make sure that they
standard
secure their food supply at home.
way of existing as a result of having no awareness of who you are, where you are, why you are.
Where will we find the land to grow that much soy?
You're bringing our planet to an end, and it has
empty frontiers anymore on the planet.
The situation in Brazil
it has to be brought to an end.
In 2019, deforestation soared.
This is something that
President
I'm
Jair
sure
Bolsonaro,
is
who took office early that year, is keen to promote the
difficult for you to understand, but how hard is it for you to realize that your hand is in a fire before you pull it
the
out?
Brazilian state of Pará. Maria Arruda lives next to
And obviously, if your hand is in a fire
Right there.
and you grew up just like I did, well, whoever taught you and I that having our hand in a fire in the way that we do, they had no awareness of who they were, where they were, why they were either. My case made.
This is all plantation. We're surrounded by soybean. It's all around us. We're right in the middle. All this land used to be a family farm. Now it's been turned into a soy monoculture, and because it's all grown for export, none of it remains in Brazil.
A truck full of soy has tipped over on a road in the state of Mato Grosso. Workers are gathering up the valuable soybeans by hand. This used to be rainforest. Now it's soy fields stretching right out to the horizon. A local farmer shows us around.
It used to be all
When we
forest.
started cultivating, this was all forest. It was
Unbelievable. Cheap
cheap land.
land,
The only thing
he
here
called
was
it.
forest and trees.
It was cheap land.
It looked the way it does on the other side of the road. We used to clear the land simply as a way to survive. This region's economy is almost entirely based on soy. This is our vocation. It's all we know how to do. We grow the food that ends up on the global population's table. Soybean is an imported crop that we have adapted to conditions here.
So all of these third world countries are being used to produce the
With the help of
high fructose corn syrup,
we slowly improved the soybean.
all of the different staple foods that
Specifically developed for
are
our region.
demanded in places like Europe, Britain, France, Germany,
We pay a visit to
China,
an agricultural trade fair in Lucas del Rio
and
in the state of
the
Mato Grosso.
fail-safe protocol counterbalancing conscious controls are the only individuals at the moment surviving on this planet. The other individuals, you people are living in
I had
the
a small
filth
farm in Rio Grande do Sul.
that's produced by your
I
own
had
work.
15 hectares. I drove here with a small truck to help my uncle, who was moving here. I was young and very enthusiastic, and I thought I could make a good future for myself here. I was lucky, and many different things came together. I was in the right place, in the right time, exactly when the world began asking for more protein and food. I had a dream, an unusual dream, almost a fantasy.
More protein.
Fortunately, reality has proved even better than my dreams. My company has 270,000 hectares under cultivation. I've publicly listed the company and sold 70% of its stock. Now I'm a shareholder and advisor.
A soja aqui no Brasil e em todo o hemisfério sul,
In Brazil and in the entire southern hemisphere, soy is the spearhead of a new model of capital production called agribusiness.
How can one man
Standardized grain.
feel it is
It's the same all over the world.
okay
It's
to
easy to grow
own
food
and
at large
possess
scale.
that large of a plot of
In
land?
Brazil, some of our soy farms cover
How?
40,000 hectares.
That individual could not understand the meaning of democracy, could they?
The global market is controlled by only 5
All of the
Bunge, Monsanto,
all of the different
and Dreyfus.
the ways in which you and I try to explain how we're going to establish and create and a method of survival
Pig feed,
on this
cow
planet
feed, and chicken feed.
without the consideration of other life forms has brought nothing but disaster. Your words,
Become one giant
they're
pigsty.
penniless.
Corporations use soy as if it were the only food we have in the world.
We have the same seeds, the same agrochemicals, the same trading companies, the same price setting mechanisms, the same players. It's a very homogeneous production system, even though it's very diverse in its integration into radically different ecosystems and social settings. It's a production system that generates its own homogeneity in order to be able to attend this global market.
And of course, that homogeneity is, of course, only produced by your desire to find your identity in the malls
Juices mainly come from other countries.
and to fill your stomach
Some
with
of them come from
acidic
Mato
foods
Grosso and
that shouldn't
Paraná.
even be in your stomach.
Local people have also started planting it. Maybe they've realized that it's good business. But most of the people who plant soy come from abroad. They also use a lot of machinery, and those machines take our jobs. Hardly any people work in those fields. There's no more work for local people. The plantations hire a few to drive tractors. But apart from that, they do all the work themselves.
So this woman gets to go home to her children after riding past your big field, and now let's go over to your house, and you get to go home and see your daughters looking over the balcony, over over the bay, and see your son running down the beach with his blow-up toy. And there's maybe 5 of you on the planet that live this way, and while 95 of you have absolutely nothing but pain.
What have you got there? Soybeans?
And a dying earth.
No, there's no soy here.
This is what you have, folks. And if you don't choose to stop this with me,
Products aren't worth anything.
look for your handlers to make things really bad for you.
Small ones can. You can try to plant corn, but then where are you going to sell it? In the end, there's no profit to be had in it. The market's only for big growers. If you want to plant soy, you need big machines, tractors. We can't afford that kind of equipment. Soy is not made for smallholders. It's that simple. They have a lot of different ways to fight pests. And then all those pests end up in our fields. So when we plant beans now, we end up with nothing. They use pesticides, and the insects end up in our fields. We can't do anything about it.
We used to plant beans and would fill 2 entire sacks of them. It's true. Now we've stopped planting them. The pests from the land that belongs to the rich people come here and destroy our seeds.
In the United States, in China, can't they just destroy their own forests to plant soybeans? Why do they have to come to Brazil and exploit our resources? Africa has plenty of forest. Why don't they go there? Maybe they don't work hard enough.
Or they have more nerve.
The soy boom has in fact reached Africa. Mozambique is nearly 10,000 kilometers from Brazil, but Brazilian companies are moving in, trying to secure vast tracts of land for soybean farming. The agribusiness project is being promoted by the Pro Savannah program.
Brazilian farmers are going to Africa because Mozambique's government is leasing land at a very cheap price to create new plantations.
Mozambique is giving Brazilian farmers a 6 million hectare area, 3 times bigger than Sergipe state, and almost for free. It's going to be a lease that will allow for the cultivation of soy, cotton, and corn, mainly for the Chinese market.
We accompany human rights activist Jeremias Vunjanye on a visit to the Nacala region. A lot of land here is slated to go to the Brazilians.
How you doing?
Good. And you?
I'm fine, my friend. Thank you. It's sowing time. It just rained.
Yes, it rained a lot. We might have a good harvest this year and the next one.
Okay.
We don't have enough land here. We already have conflicts among ourselves. If investors come, the conflict will become worse. The land belongs to the people of Mozambique. We're not against development, but we believe that the community should be consulted. Despite what our government says, we don't eat soybeans. We eat our local crops. We gave the government some advice. Before implementing the project, they need to involve local farmers. What happened instead is that meetings were not public, not at the district or at the national level. We've been threatened and intimidated. Many farmers are facing criminal charges.
So you believe that Pro Savannah is not helping farmers?
No, Pro Savannah is not good for us.
Pro Savannah is a joint program involving Mozambique, Japan, and Brazil. Its official goal is to promote development in the Nacala region.
When civic organizations investigated the situation, we realized that Pro Savannah was an umbrella project designed to pave the way for big investors and agribusiness giants. Anyone who is interested in taking control of water, land, and natural resources in the Nacala corridor of Mozambique. Local farmers were displaced, and 5 million people in the region have been affected. Is this your land? Is this the land you want to occupy? This is just a declaration. You do not have a certificate for land use. This is only a statement about where you live. It specifies where your community lives and operates. But this certificate does not give you rights to use the land. That's why you have to be careful. Someone else could have laid claim to a land use certificate. The community needs to fight to get the proper documentation. If we don't deal with this situation, it might soon be too late.
In 2016, Opponents of the pro-Savannah program organized a major protest. They succeeded in convincing the government to suspend it.
For a long time, Mozambique's government implemented its policies without any outside input. Now they've finally been challenged by an opposition movement. By farm workers who said that this is not the way to promote agricultural development. They showed that it is possible to resist, to protest, and to say no. You are the ones who are sustaining this country. 90% of the food that we eat in Mozambique is produced by small farmers, not by big companies or by projects from Brazil or who knows where. We have to be very careful with these big projects. They come here and promise all kinds of things. But when these projects end, what do? They leave. They move somewhere else to pursue other goals, whatever the market demands.
Despite some small successes in places like Mozambique, around the world meat consumption continues to soar, and with it the soy industry. In Brazil, new plantations are concentrated in the Amazon region. President Bolsonaro's policies are posing an additional threat to this fragile ecosystem.
This is a map of the Amazon region. Everything in red is land that's been deforested. It makes up 19% of the rainforest. This area, which begins in Rondônia, is known as the Arc of Deforestation. 62% of this area is soybean monoculture. Another 6% are mixed crops. But even that includes a lot of soybean.
De agricultura anual, basicamente soja.
Taking rainforest and plowing that into a soybean monoculture turns up an awful lot of carbon that has been stored in the soil, stored in the forest. So those vast monocultures emit a lot of greenhouse gases just in turning it over the first time, but then every time you're plowing, you have the emissions from the agricultural machinery itself, and then you have the emissions of crushing the soybeans, processing it, and shipping them back to China. It's an enormously energy-intensive process.
In the context of climate change, how do we reduce agricultural's footprint in landscapes and enhance carbon sequestration? The clearance of tropical rainforests for either pasture or large-scale monocultures has an enormous climate implication in terms of the release of carbon from those ecosystems. And in the case of industrial monocultures, to make those nutrient-poor soils productive for farming requires very considerable fertilizer.
What's happening here in Brazil is a crime.